breakfast awards of the season. So there's a couple that I want to quick fire with you, if that's all right. Player of the season?
Haaland.
Haaland, easy.
Never seen a player like him.
Fair enough. What about upset of the season?
Upset of the season? That's not on my list. Yes, it is. Right at the bottom. Upset of the season, I would say Peterborough, Sheffield Wednesday.
Nice, that's perfect as well.
4-0 down.
And now these ones we can spend a little bit more time. Young player of the season?
Saka. Consistent, scores, makes goals. Big future in front of him.
Yes. Manager of the season, perhaps a bit harder to pick.
It is, because you could say O'Neill, you could say Eddie Howe, but Guardiola's at the sharp end, the most difficult part of football. Got to win things, got to win everything they're in. He manages to keep all them superstars all on board, leaving them out when he feels like leaving them out, and I'm going to give it to Guardiola. He's
very, you can tell he's quite brutal, because sometimes when you think he's got his favourites, he surprises you and leaves them out, and you think, oh, what's going on there? Cancelo for me was a huge shock. I didn't see any of that coming. I thought he, at times, one of their best players on the pitch. And for him to then leave completely, I don't know if there's a way back. There might be a way back. Dropping Kyle Walker at times this season as well. Kevin De Bruyne being on the bench, and you're thinking, what's he doing? But obviously finds a way of doing it. They won the Premier League. Do you think they'll do the treble?
I think they will, yeah. It's very difficult to beat. I mean, you look at the way they're playing. I mean, you got Haaland, who's just... Alvarez is just behind him. But when you've got all them midfield players who are just queuing up, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Grealish, Bernardo Silva, what a player, Rodri. I mean, they're unstoppable.
How close, sorry, just drinking coffee. How close was Unai Emery to your manager of the season?
Well, he's done a magnificent job. He's galvanised the team. He's got players who weren't playing very well, playing better. He's got the back four, 15 yards up the pitch. And he's done an unbelievable job, and maybe he was unfairly criticised when he was at Arsenal.
It's funny when you think about manager of the season. For example, this season's quite difficult to decide, I think, because is your manager of the season someone who has exceeded expectations, or someone who has achieved what they're sort of expected to have achieved, but maintaining the highest of standards, which is Pep Guardiola, for example? And also, are you judging it on where they finish in the league, whether they get European football, or is it somewhere where they have to win silverware for you to consider them successful? I think you're right. I think the likes of Gary O'Neill, all those kind of managers that have propelled themselves, Thomas Frank as well, propelled themselves to exceed expectations. I think those guys, just
What about
amazing.
Sean Dyche? You know, you look at Sean Dyche again. He kept Burnley up 8 years on the bounce with no money, not compared to everyone else. And he's just kept Everton up.
I wouldn't make him my manager of the season.
Not this season. I mean, you're on about the contrast between, is he overachieving as a manager, and is Guardiola, by not winning the Champions League, underachieving with the tools he's got?
Well, you could argue that was his job. That's a job, by the way. That was his job, to come in and keep them up. So not necessarily, I think exceeding expectations would have given him a bit more of a cushion than 2 points in the end it was. I know what you're saying, though. I mean, there's an argument for a lot of them this season, because I just think it's been such an interesting one, where that mid-table position has just been so wildly fluctuated.
Brighton manager. Like
I completely forgot Roberto De Zerbi. Yeah. I know, because he didn't even get a pre-season. Oh, it's hard, isn't it? But you're still going with Pep.
Pep, because he's at the sharp end.
Fair enough. How about flop of the season?
I've thought about this for a while, and then I thought, what's happened to Jadon Sancho? What's happened to him? How much did they pay for him? 80 million?
Yeah, but I think this has been a better season than it has previously. I thought he went away, got his head together, and came back in and reintegrated quite well now.
No, I look at Matoma playing for Brighton, and I feel like saying to Jadon Sancho, when you play like him, be as positive as him. He picks the ball up, he goes at people. I've seen you doing it for Dortmund. Mm-hmm. I've seen you picking the ball up and attacking fullbacks, and not worried if you lose it, getting to the byline, getting crossing, coming inside, bend them in the top corner, a bit like Matoma's playing now, and he's sort of gone into his shell.
I would disagree with you on that, because I honestly think this season's been a coming out of the shell for Jadon Sancho in his Manchester United career, not in his career in general. I think he hit some really difficult times, and I think Erik has managed to do, my mate Erik Ten Hag has managed to do something to start to see the best in him, I would say that's not your flop, is it? Is that really your flop?
Yeah,
what about Richarlison?
Do you know what? I spoke to Steve Cooper about, he was manager of England under 17s and in England under 19s, and he's had all them, Reece James and Mount, Foden, he's had them all. And I said, well, while we were talking, I said, who's the best one you've had out of all them? He said, Foden and Sancho, I think, were like world beaters at that age. And so I've watched ever since, and I'm sure I wouldn't be talking out of turn. I'm sure Steve Cooper's saying, come on, you're better than that.
But I can't. Well, I can't argue. Anyway. Well, I can argue. I can't say that you can't have it. But I just think how much was Richarlison? 60 million, 50 million.
Never
he
picked
scored
him.
One Premier League goal in the end.
Yeah,
but,
you're right.
But and there were times at the beginning when he was keeping Son out the team, or not necessarily keeping him out, but it almost felt like he was upsetting Son by his mere presence in the squad. But all right, I'll go for it. Not that these aren't mine; these are yours. I'm just going to stop overruling.
It's difficult to find a flop.
Is it
a complete flop? Ooh, name another one.
Well, that's my
start
one.
looking at the teams that are relegated.
That's my one though, Richarlison.
Right, okay.
What about ridiculous moment of the season?
Whoever's idea it was to put the World Cup in the middle of the season. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
That unbelievable.
FIFA. Listen, Dino, when we went out there, all of the stadiums had air conditioning and it was cold. Some of the stadiums you were cold in there because the air conditioning was so good. So it didn't matter if they had it in the summer. It would have been fine.
Yeah.
Annoying.
It's ridiculous.
There you go, like that. Most embarrassing moment of the season?
Most embarrassing moment, I think it's got to be Man United's defeat against Liverpool.
7-0.
And watching the Sky pundits talking afterwards, Gary Neville sat there cringing, and Roy's head was really ready to come off, but he just had to agree. And Jamie Carragher and Graeme Souness rubbing it in. But I think that's embarrassing for the club. I was cringing for him.
Yeah, it was bad, wasn't it? Have we missed any? I think we've done upset of the season. You having that?
Upsets again. Sheffield Wednesday, Peterborough, 4-0 down.
Oh yeah, we already did that one, didn't we? Very good. I think we probably. Story of the season. Have you got one for that?
Story of the season has to be Wrexham. Imagine, I was manager there, right? And in the doldrums, and 2 film stars decide to buy Wrexham, and they're going to take them up, and they've done it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the story continues. You know, like they're massive in America. You can't buy a shirt. In the airport in LA, I think there's a big, there's posters everywhere about Wrexham. I mean, I got asked to do games on ESPN live.
Did you?
Wrexham games are on ESPN live. I mean, the old town's buzzing, and they've done so much for Wrexham, not just the football club. I didn't think they'd stay, but they've... Amazing story. Would you say in some ways they've revived your career as well? Not that I've revived my... Oh, what have they done for me? Because you're going to start getting asked to be a pundit much more. Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Right? Also, yeah. So, I like that. Sheffield United got promoted, so they're back up in the Premier League. Okay, we'll go. That was Dino's Moments of the Season, his awards for the talkSPORT Breakfast Show this morning.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.